The perfect cage, Sophia Caldwell had always believed that angels existed on Earth. And for 22 years, she was certain Victoria Blackwood was hers. The elegant woman with silver hair and kind eyes had rescued her from the orphanage when she was just 7 years old, not to adopt her, but to become her mentor, guardian, and the only family she had ever known. Their mansion in the hills overlooked a peaceful valley where Sophia spent her days learning piano, studying languages, and perfecting the art of being a lady. Victoria had always said she was special, destined for something greater than the ordinary world could offer. Every lesson in etiquette, every hour spent practicing violin, every carefully chosen book in their vast library had been selected to shape Sophia into what Victoria called a masterpiece. "Oh, you are not like other girls," Victoria would often say, adjusting Sophia's posture during their afternoon tea sessions. "You have been blessed with rare beauty and intelligence. The world will try to corrupt that, but I will protect you from its ugliness." Sophia believed every word. She had no reason not to. Victoria provided everything she needed: beautiful clothes, the finest education, and a safe haven from the world outside. The only rule was that Sophia must never leave the estate without Victoria's permission and presence. For 15 years, this arrangement felt like protection rather than imprisonment. The golden opportunity on a crisp autumn morning, Victoria entered the morning room where Sophia was practicing piano, her face glowing with excitement. In her hand, she carried an elegant envelope sealed with gold wax. "My dear child," Victoria announced, settling into her favorite armchair, "the most wonderful opportunity has presented itself. Do you remember me telling you about the exclusive cultural programs in Europe?" Sophia's fingers stilled on the keys. Victoria had mentioned such programs before, describing them as prestigious finishing schools where only the most exceptional young women were invited to study art, music, and literature with world-renowned masters. "I remember," Sophia replied, turning to face her guardian with curiosity sparkling in her green eyes. Victoria smiled warmly, opening the envelope with ceremonial care. "The Academy of Refined Arts in Switzerland has extended a personal invitation for you to join their most exclusive program. Only 12 young ladies from around the world are selected each year." The letter was written on heavy cream paper with elegant calligraphy. Sophia read it twice, her heart racing with excitement. After years of isolation, the prospect of meeting other people, of experiencing the world beyond their estate, felt like a dream coming true. "When would I leave?" Sophia asked, trying to contain her enthusiasm. "Next week," Victoria replied, already moving to the window to gaze out at the gardens. "The program begins with a special orientation in Geneva. I will accompany you, of course, to ensure you settle in properly." That evening, Sophia called her best friend, Alina Martinez, the only person outside the estate she was allowed regular contact with. Alina worked as a nurse in the nearby town and had been Sophia's connection to the outside world through their weekly phone conversations. "This sounds incredible, Sophie," Alina said, though something in her voice seemed hesitant. "Research this academy? I could help you look into it." "Victoria handles all of that," Sophia replied automatically. "She knows what's best for me." Alina paused for a moment. "Sophie, I say this because I care about you. It's time you started making some of these decisions for yourself. You're 22 years old." But Sophia had already learned to dismiss such suggestions. Victoria had taught her that the world was full of people who would try to poison her mind with doubts and confusion. Alina meant well, but she didn't understand the special life Sophia had been chosen for. The journey begins the week past. In a blur of preparation, Victoria personally selected Sophia's wardrobe for the trip, choosing elegant dresses, sophisticated shoes, and jewelry that seemed more expensive than their usual pieces. She also arranged for Sophia to have her hair professionally styled and her nails perfectly manicured. "First impressions matter tremendously," Victoria explained as they drove to the airport. "The other students will come from the finest families in the world. You must show them that you belong among such elevated company." Sophia felt nervous excitement as they boarded the private jet Victoria had chartered for their journey. She had never flown before, and the luxury of the aircraft overwhelmed her. Crystal glasses, leather seats, softer than silk, and windows that offered breathtaking views of the world below. During the flight, Victoria was unusually quiet, often staring out the window with a distant expression. When Sophia asked if everything was all right, Victoria simply smiled and patted her hand. "I am simply emotional about this next chapter of your life," she said. "You are about to enter a world that will change everything for you." They landed in Geneva as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. A black car, with tinted windows, waited for them on the tarmac, and the driver, a stern-faced man in a dark suit, said nothing during the drive through the city. Sophia pressed her face to the window, marveling at the beautiful architecture and elegant shops. She had imagined this moment for so long, and now it was finally happening. She was entering the world Victoria had always promised would one day be hers. The shocking truth: the car stopped in front of what appeared to be an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Sophia looked around in confusion, expecting to see the beautiful academy building Victoria had described. "Victoria, I think there's been a mistake," Sophia said. But when she turned to her guardian, the woman's expression had changed completely. Gone was the warm, protective smile Sophia had known all her life. In its place was a cold, calculating look that made Sophia's blood run cold. "There has been no mistake," Victoria said quietly. "Get out of the car." Sophia's hands trembled as she obeyed, her mind struggling to process what was happening. The driver opened the warehouse door, revealing a sight that would haunt her forever. Inside, the warehouse had been transformed into an elegant showroom. Beautiful furniture, soft lighting, and classical music created an atmosphere of refined luxury. But it was the stage at the center of the room that made Sophia's knees weak. Young women, all approximately her age, stood on display platforms wearing elegant gowns. Each had a number pinned to their dress, and well-dressed men and women circulated around them, examining them like valuable artwork. "Welcome to your true education," Victoria said, her voice devoid of any warmth. "This is where you learn your real worth in the world." Sophia stumbled backward, her mind reeling. "What is this place? What are you doing?" "I am doing what I have spent 15 years preparing for," Victoria replied. "You were never my charity case, Sophia. You were my investment." Every lesson, every skill, every refinement was designed to make this moment as profitable as possible. The full horror of the situation crashed over Sophia like a wave. The Academy of Refined Arts didn't exist. The letter was fake. The private jet, the expensive clothes, the years of careful preparation, it had all been leading to this moment. "You're selling me," Sophia whispered, the words barely audible. Victoria nodded with the same casual efficiency she had once used to plan. "Sophia's piano lessons. The opening bid for you is $2 million. Your musical abilities, languages, and classical education have made you quite valuable. I expect you'll sell for considerably more." Sophia felt the world spinning around her. The woman who had raised her, who had claimed to love her, who had been her entire world for 15 years, had betrayed her in the most complete and devastating way possible. "How could you do this to me?" Sophia asked, tears streaming down her face. For just a moment, something flickered in Victoria's eyes. It might have been regret, or perhaps just annoyance at Sophia's emotional display. "The world is not a fairy tale, child," Victoria said. "Beauty and innocence are commodities, just like everything else. Simply chose to profit from yours rather than let you waste them on some ordinary life." A man in an expensive suit approached them, speaking to Victoria in hushed tones. Sophia caught fragments of their conversation: exceptional quality, highest bidders, transportation arrangements. "It's time," Victoria said, signaling to two security guards who had been watching from the shadows. As they led Sophia toward the stage area, she looked back at Victoria one last time. The woman who had been her entire world was already walking away, speaking on her phone about travel arrangements back to their estate. Sophia realized in that moment that she had never really known Victoria at all. The love, the protection, the special treatment, it had all been an elaborate performance designed to create the perfect product for this horrific moment. Standing on the platform with a number pinned to her dress, surrounded by other young women who had suffered similar betrayals, Sophia understood that her real education was just beginning. And unlike the lessons Victoria had taught her, this one would be about survival. The auction was about to begin, and somewhere in the crowd of wealthy bidders, someone was preparing to purchase her life. Sophia closed her eyes and prayed that, whoever that person was, they might show her more mercy than the woman she had trusted most in the world. The underground theater at the warehouse had been transformed into something that resembled an exclusive theater, but the performance about to unfold was far more sinister than any play. Sophia stood frozen on her designated platform, watching as wealthy men and women in expensive clothing took their seats in plush velvet chairs, arranged in semicircles around the stage area. The other young women on the platforms looked as terrified as Sophia felt. Some stared straight ahead with empty expressions, while others trembled visibly. A few had tears streaming down their faces, but none dared to make a sound. The security guards positioned throughout the room made it clear that any disruption would not be tolerated. Madame Rousseau, an elegant woman with sharp features and calculating eyes, served as the evening's host. She moved between the platforms with the practiced grace of someone who had conducted many such events. Her voice carried clearly through the room as she addressed the assembled bidders. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's exclusive presentation. Each of our featured items has been carefully selected and prepared to meet the highest standards of our discerning clientele." Sophia felt sick hearing herself described as an item. She searched the crowd for any sign of humanity, any face that might show compassion or horror at what was happening. Instead, she saw only cold calculation and predatory interest. Auction began with the young woman to Sophia's left, a blonde girl who couldn't have been older than 19. The bidding started at $1 million and quickly escalated. Sophia watched in horror as the girl's life was bought and sold like a piece of art. An unexpected arrival as the second auction concluded. A commotion near the entrance drew everyone's attention. Security guards at the door were speaking. In urgent whispers to someone outside, Madame Rousseau paused her presentation, her professional smile flickering with annoyance. "Ladies and gentlemen, please excuse this brief interruption," she announced. "We have a last-minute addition to our guest list." The doors opened, and Gabriel Sterling entered the warehouse with the commanding presence of someone accustomed to controlling every room he entered. At 35, he possessed the kind of quiet authority that money and power could cultivate. But there was something different about him that Sophia noticed immediately, while the other bidders had looked. At the women on the platforms with predatory calculation, Gabriel's dark eyes held something else entirely. When his gaze swept across the stage and landed on Sophia, she saw anger, disgust, and what might have been recognition. Gabriel Sterling was known throughout the business world as a tech mogul who had built his fortune through innovative software development. His company had revolutionized data security systems, making him wealthy beyond imagination. But wealth had not been his primary motivation for the past 5 years. 3 years earlier, Gabriel's younger sister had disappeared while studying abroad in Europe. The official investigation had led nowhere. But Gabriel's private investigators had uncovered whispers of an underground network that trafficked young women to wealthy buyers. Tonight was the culmination of 2 years of careful investigation. "In preparation, Mr. Sterling," Madame Rousseau said, her voice carrying a note of surprise. "We weren't expecting you this evening." "Business brought me to Geneva unexpectedly," Gabriel replied, his voice calm and controlled. "I trust you can accommodate one additional bidder." Madame Rousseau's smile returned, though it seemed forced. "Of course. Please, take any available seat." Gabriel moved through the room with deliberate slowness, his eyes cataloging faces, security positions, and exit routes. He had spent months planning for this moment, and every detail mattered. The moment of truth, when Sophia's turn came, Madame Rousseau's introduction was particularly elaborate. "Our next presentation is truly exceptional. Sophia has been educated in classical music, speaks 4 languages fluently, and has been trained in all the social graces expected of the finest society. Her starting bid is $2 million. Sophia felt the room's attention focus on her like a spotlight. Bidders leaned forward in their seats, examining her with the same intensity they might use to evaluate a racehorse. The degradation was complete and overwhelming. The bidding began aggressively. Within minutes, the price had reached $4 million. Sophia recognized some of the voices calling out bids. Men who had spoken to her briefly during the reception, asking about her musical abilities and education. Gabriel remained silent during the initial rounds of bidding, observing the other participants with careful attention. He was memorizing faces and voices, gathering evidence that would later be crucial in bringing down the entire network. The bidding reached $6 million. Gabriel finally raised his hand. $10 million, he said clearly, his voice cutting through the excited murmurs of the crowd. The room fell silent. Even for this exclusive gathering, $10 million was an extraordinary sum. Madame Rousseau's eyebrows rose slightly, but her professional composure never wavered. "We have $10 million from Mr. Sterling," she announced. "Do I hear any other bids?" One of the previous bidders, an older man with silver hair, countered with $11 million. Gabriel didn't hesitate. $15 million, he said. The finality in his voice seemed to discourage further competition. After a long pause, Madame Rousseau brought down her gavel, sold to Mr. Sterling for $15 million. The transaction, Sophia felt her world collapse entirely in that moment. She had been sold to a stranger for an amount of money she couldn't even comprehend. Her legs gave out, and she had to grab the platform's railing to keep from falling. Gabriel approached the stage area, but instead of the triumphant expression she expected from her new owner, his face showed only grim determination. When he spoke to Madame Rousseau, his voice was low and controlled. "I'll need the standard documentation and transportation arrangements," he said. "Of course, Mr. Sterling. Everything will be prepared within the hour. Would you like to inspect your purchase more closely?" Gabriel's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "That won't be necessary. I trust your quality standards." As the business arrangements were being finalized, Gabriel found a moment to approach Sophia's platform. When he looked up at her, she saw something in his eyes that she hadn't seen from anyone else in that terrible place: genuine concern. "My name is Gabriel," he said quietly, his voice meant only for her. "I need you to trust me for the next few hours. Can you do that?" Sophia stared at him in confusion. Of all the things she had expected her buyer to say, this wasn't among them. There was something in his tone that suggested this wasn't what it appeared to be. "I don't understand," she whispered. "You will soon," Gabriel replied. "For now, just remember that sometimes things are not what they seem." The escape plan. The next hour passed in a blur of paperwork and arrangements. Gabriel completed the financial transaction with the efficiency of someone conducting any other business deal. Sophia was given a coat and escorted to Gabriel's waiting car, a sleek black sedan with tinted windows. As they drove through the Geneva streets, Sophia sat in terrified silence. Gabriel made several phone calls, speaking in code words that she didn't understand. She caught fragments about extraction protocols and federal coordination, but the meaning escaped her. After 20 minutes, Gabriel ended his final call and turned to address her directly. "Sophia, I need you to listen to me very carefully," he said. "My name is Gabriel Sterling, and I am not what you think I am. For the past 2 years, I have been working to infiltrate and expose the trafficking network that operated tonight." Sophia stared at him in shock. "What do you mean?" "I mean that you are not my prisoner. You are free, and you are safe. The money I paid tonight was not to own you, it was to save you." The car pulled into the parking garage of a luxury hotel. Gabriel continued speaking as they rode the elevator to the penthouse floor. "I have been tracking this network because they took someone very important to me. Tonight was about gathering evidence and saving as many victims as possible. You were never actually sold, Sophia. You were rescued." When the elevator doors opened, Sophia found herself in an elegant suite where several other people were waiting. A woman who appeared to be a doctor immediately approached them. "Hello, Sophia," the doctor said gently. "My name is Dr. Richards. I'm here to make sure you're all right and to explain what happens next." Gabriel watched as Dr. Richards led Sophia to a comfortable chair and began a gentle examination. His phone buzzed with a message from his security team confirming that federal agents were moving in on the warehouse location. "The other women," Sophia said suddenly, looking up at Gabriel with urgent concern. "What about the other women who were there tonight?" Gabriel's expression grew grim. that's being handled as we speak. Federal agents are arresting everyone involved in tonight's operation. The other victims will be rescued and provided with the same care and protection you're receiving. For the first time since Victoria's betrayal, Sophia felt a spark of hope. The nightmare might actually be ending. The truth revealed as Dr. Richards completed her examination and confirmed that Sophia was physically unharmed. Gabriel sat down across from her and began to explain the full scope of what had happened. The trafficking network you were sold into tonight is part of a larger criminal organization that operates across multiple countries. They target vulnerable young women, often using trusted authority figures to deliver them to auction sites. Sophia thought immediately of Victoria. "How did you know about me specifically?" Gabriel's expression darkened. "We've been monitoring communications between network operators for months. Your guardian, Victoria Blackwood, has been selling information about potential victims to this organization for years." The betrayal felt fresh and sharp all over again. "How many others?" "We believe she has been responsible for delivering at least 12 young women to various auction sites over the past decade. You were intended to be her most profitable transaction." Gabriel showed Sophia a tablet displaying surveillance photos and intercepted communications. The evidence against Victoria was overwhelming and heartbreaking. "Why didn't you stop this sooner?" Sophia asked. "Because we needed enough evidence to bring down the entire network, not just individual operators. Tonight's operation will result in arrests across 3 countries and the rescue of dozens of victims." As Gabriel explained the investigation, Sophia began to understand the careful planning that had gone into her rescue. Gabriel had spent months positioning himself to be present at tonight's auction, and federal agents had been coordinating with international law enforcement for weeks. "What happens to me now?" Sophia asked, the question that had been haunting her since Gabriel revealed the truth. Gabriel's expression softened. "That's entirely up to you. You have family in the United States who have been looking for you, cousins. Your guardian never told you about. There are also support services available to help trafficking victims rebuild their lives." The idea of family she had never known about was overwhelming. For 22 years, Victoria had convinced her that they were alone in the world. "Would you like to contact them?" Gabriel asked gently. Sophia nodded, tears streaming down her face. For the first time in hours, they were tears of hope rather than fear. As Gabriel arranged for the phone call that would reunite Sophia with family she had never known existed, she realized that her real life was finally about to begin. The nightmare was over. The man who had saved her was offering her something Victoria never had: the freedom to choose her own future. The safe haven. 3 weeks had passed since the night that changed everything. Sophia stood on the terrace of Gabriel's mountain estate in Colorado, watching the sunrise paint the peaks in shades of gold and pink. The fresh mountain air filled her lungs as she breathed deeply, something she couldn't have imagined doing during those dark hours in Geneva. Gabriel's home was nothing like the cold mansion where Victoria had kept her imprisoned for 15 years. This place felt warm and alive, with large windows that let in natural light, comfortable furniture that invited relaxation, and books scattered everywhere showing signs of actual reading rather than mere decoration. Dr. Richards had recommended that Sophia stay somewhere safe and quiet while the legal proceedings unfolded, and while she processed the trauma of her experience. Gabriel had offered his home without hesitation, though he made it clear that it was entirely her choice. "You need time to heal and to figure out what you want to do with your freedom," he had told her gently. "This is simply a safe place where you can do that without pressure or judgment." The estate was staffed by people Gabriel trusted completely. Maria, the housekeeper, had become a motherly figure to Sophia, always ready with a warm meal or a listening ear. James, Gabriel's assistant, handled all the legal communications and media inquiries, shielding Sophia from the chaos surrounding the international trafficking investigation. Learning to live every day brought new challenges as Sophia learned to navigate a world where her choices actually mattered. Simple decisions like what to eat for breakfast or which book to read had once been made by Victoria. Now Sophia faced the overwhelming freedom of deciding everything for herself. Gabriel had been patient and understanding throughout her adjustment period. He worked from his home office most days, always available if she needed anything, but never intrusive. He had given her access to his extensive library, arranged for a piano to be delivered when he learned about her musical background, and even set up video calls with the cousins she had never known existed. "Your cousin Rebecca has been looking for you since you disappeared from the orphanage 15 years ago," Gabriel explained during one of their evening conversations. "Your mother had a sister who died in a car accident, but she had children who were adopted by different families. They never stopped hoping to find you." The knowledge that she had family who had actually cared about her whereabouts was both healing and heartbreaking. Victoria had deliberately isolated her from any possibility of genuine connection with people who might have loved her unconditionally. During the quiet evenings, Gabriel and Sophia had begun sharing their stories. She learned about his own family, tragedy, his sister who had been taken by the same network that had captured her, and his relentless 2-year investigation that had finally paid off. "Did you ever find her?" Sophia asked one evening as they sat by the fireplace. Gabriel's expression grew sad. "No, but we found evidence that she had been held at several different locations before the trail went cold. The important thing is that we prevented this from happening to other people." Sophia saw the pain he carried for his sister and realized that their shared experience of loss and survival had created a deep connection between them. The trial preparation as the weeks passed. Federal prosecutors built their case against the trafficking network. Sophia's testimony would be crucial in convicting not only Victoria, but also Madame Rousseau and dozens of other operators across multiple countries. The lead prosecutor, Amanda Stevens, visited the estate regularly to prepare Sophia for her testimony. She was a kind but determined woman who made it clear that Sophia's courage in speaking out would help save countless other potential victims. "I know this is difficult," Amanda said during one of their preparation sessions, "but your story is powerful evidence of how this network operates. The jury needs to understand the psychological manipulation and long-term planning involved in these crimes." Sophia had initially been terrified at the prospect of facing Victoria in court, but as she processed her experience with Dr. Richards and gained strength from Gabriel's support, she found her voice growing stronger. "I want to testify," Sophia told Gabriel one evening. "I want Victoria to face the consequences of what she did, not just to me, but to all the other women she betrayed." Gabriel smiled with obvious pride. "You've become incredibly brave, Sophia. Much braver than I was when I started this investigation." "You saved my life," she replied. "That took tremendous courage." "Had resources and training," Gabriel said. "You survived 15 years of psychological manipulation and still managed to maintain your humanity. That's true strength." The confrontation, the day of Victoria's trial, arrived with surprising speed. Sophia wore a simple blue dress that Gabriel had helped her choose, something that made her feel confident without being flashy. As they walked into the federal courthouse, she gripped Gabriel's hand tightly. "Remember," Gabriel whispered as they took their seats, "she has no power over you anymore. You are free, and you have people who genuinely care about you." When Victoria was brought into the courtroom in handcuffs, Sophia felt a mix of emotions she hadn't expected. There was anger, certainly, but also sadness for the relationship she had believed was real. Victoria looked older and smaller than Sophia remembered. Gone was the commanding presence that had dominated her childhood. In its place was a woman who looked tired and defeated. When Sophia took the witness stand, she looked directly at Victoria as she began her testimony. She spoke clearly and calmly about the years of isolation, the careful grooming and preparation, and the ultimate betrayal in Geneva. "Did you ever suspect that Ms. Blackwood's intentions were anything other than protective?" the prosecutor asked. "No," Sophia replied. "She was very skilled at making me believe that everything she did was out of love. I trusted her completely because she was the only family I had ever known." Victoria's defense attorney tried to paint her as a misguided woman who had genuinely believed she was preparing Sophia for a better life, but the evidence against her was overwhelming. The prosecution presented financial records showing the showing the payments Victoria had received for previous victims, communication records detailing her negotiations with the trafficking network, and testimony from other survivors who had been betrayed by trusted guardians. When it was Victoria's turn to speak, she finally looked at Sophia directly. "I told myself I was protecting you from a harder life," Victoria said, her voice barely audible. "I convinced myself that this was better than poverty, or uncertainty. Sophia felt no satisfaction in seeing Victoria broken. Instead, she felt a strange kind of closure. "You could have loved me for real," Sophia said when given the chance to address Victoria directly. "Instead, you turned love into a transaction. That was your choice, not mine." The verdict in New Life: Victoria was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. Madame Rousseau received a similar sentence, and dozens of other network operators were convicted in coordinated trials across 3 countries. The investigation had rescued 47 victims and prevented countless future trafficking operations. After the trial, Sophia faced the question of what to do with her newfound freedom. Gabriel had made it clear that she was welcome to stay at his estate as long as she needed, but he also supported whatever decisions she wanted to make about her future. "I want to help other survivors," Sophia told him one evening as they walked through his gardens. "I want to use my experience to prevent this from happening to other people." Gabriel smiled. "I hoped you might say that. I've been working with a foundation that supports trafficking survivors. They could use someone with your insight and experience." Over the following months, Sophia began working with the Sterling Foundation, the organization Gabriel had created to combat human trafficking. She helped develop support programs for survivors and spoke at conferences about the psychological tactics used by traffickers to manipulate their victims. Love and freedom. As Sophia grew stronger and more confident in her new life, her relationship with Gabriel deepened beyond their shared mission. The man who had saved her life had become her closest friend, her partner in meaningful work, and eventually something more. "I never expected this," Gabriel confessed one evening as they sat together on the terrace where Sophia had watched her first sunrise as a free woman. "When I set out to infiltrate that network, I thought only about justice and rescue. I never imagined finding someone who would change my entire world." Sophia looked at him with eyes that now held confidence instead of fear. "Victoria taught me that love could be a prison. You've shown me that real love is about freedom and choice." Gabriel took her hand gently. "Every day with you is a choice I make gladly, not because I saved you, but because of who you are and who you're becoming." 2 years after the night that changed everything, Gabriel and Sophia stood together at a podium addressing an international conference on human trafficking. They had become partners in every sense of the word, using their experience and resources to fight the kind of evil that had once threatened to destroy their lives. "Survival is not the end of the story," Sophia told the audience. "It's the beginning. Every survivor has the potential to become a force for protecting others, for creating a world where trust is not weaponized and love is not conditional on submission." The true victory that evening, as they returned to their home in Colorado, Sophia reflected on the journey that had brought her from Victoria's gilded cage to this life of purpose and genuine love. The mountain peaks stood silent and strong against the starlit sky, reminding her of her own resilience. Gabriel wrapped his arms around her as they stood on the terrace. "Do you ever regret the path that brought us together?" he asked. Sophia considered the question seriously. "I regret the pain and the betrayal, but I don't regret finding my strength. I don't regret finding you. I don't regret being able to help other women find their freedom." She had learned that real love didn't require submission or perfection. It didn't seek to control or possess. Real love celebrated growth, supported choices, and created space for both people to become their best selves. As they watched the stars appear one by one in the clear mountain sky, Sophia knew that her story had become something Victoria could never have imagined. Instead of being sold as a perfect object for someone else's pleasure, she had become a strong woman who chose her own path and used her freedom to help others find theirs. The girl who had been betrayed by the person she trusted most had grown into a woman who knew how to trust wisely and love freely. And that transformation, born from the worst kind of betrayal, had become the foundation for the most authentic and powerful love story of her life. The nightmare was truly over. Real adventure had just begun.